Welcome to this video lecture on scientific research in information systems. In this set of video lectures, we will introduce information systems research as a field of science. This is the first part of 3 lectures in this regard. And in this particular video lecture, we will be talking about what is difficult about doing research. The main reading for this video lecture is chapter 1, called Introduction from the textbook Scientific Research in Information Systems. A link is provided to the chapter, and the book is available from all major publishers and resellers. So, what is difficult about doing research? First, we need to acknowledge that research is a challenging task. In fact, most people that actually try to complete a PhD program, which is typically the most well-known scientific research degree that a student can undertake, most of these people actually do not finish. Attrition in residential programs, so where students go to university and do a research degree, can be as high as 50%. The data is difficult to get in Germany. It is said that it can range from 15 to 25 or even higher percent in certain disciplines. So it's by no means an easy feat to complete a research degree, which involves substantially doing research. Moreover, it's also very challenging mentally and physically. There is some very worrisome data about doctoral students that claim to have considered suicide, that have experienced the symptoms of depression, and that experience a lot of stress. And this data, and I'm including a couple of examples here, is in fact rising if you believe some of the studies that are out there. So the question is, why is it all of a sudden so difficult to finish a study program, which by definition is a degree that you do after you've completed a couple of other degrees? So a doctoral research degree, which is, as I said, typically the first time that students can actually do a real science degree, you'd have to complete a bachelor and a master or a bachelor or honors degree before you even get entry. So in other words, doctoral students, those that pursue a research degree, are typically have completed multiple university level degrees. And also typically these are the ones that are very, very good in these degrees, right? So that have very high grade point average, that are typically top of the class. These are typically the people that start doing research. One of the main difficulties in doing research as opposed to learning knowledge for some other degrees is that the role of knowledge is entirely reversed. Instead of taking in more knowledge as you would in a bachelor or master degree, where you go and sit in lectures and you listen to professors and you take in knowledge, your job in research is to create new knowledge about something that we didn't know beforehand. And to explain this point, we can consider a very simple metaphorical, a parable if you want. So if you think that elementary school is like learning to ride a tricycle and high school is like learning to ride a bicycle, then you could conceive that college or a bachelor level education is like learning to drive a car, right? It's sort of the same, but it gets a little bit more complicated and more powerful. And like a master's degree on top of a bachelor degree could be something like learning to drive a really fast car. If you follow that metaphor, most students that go into research degrees typically then think it's more of the same. Like you learn to fly an airplane, another vehicle that is a little bit more complicated, right? So, for example, one that can now fly or one that can now swim and not only ride. But that's entirely wrong. The better metaphor for a research degree is that instead of learning how to use or drive some vehicle or some mode of transportation, your job is to design a new car. It's an entirely different type of knowledge experience. Instead of learning, you have to create knowledge. And that is one of the main reasons it is so challenging and difficult for people. So one of the main reasons it is so difficult is that it's a lot less structured. If the professors and other lecturers of your courses know something, they can devise lectures like this one, they can prepare materials, they can give you reading and exercises that portion the knowledge that they already have and make that accessible to you in formats that are, more or less good to comprehend and follow, right? So traditionally, these are lectures, these are, like monologues like mine right now. But, of course, we could conceive all sorts of different types of formats, it could be a video, it could be an interactive game, could be an app, could be an exercise where we do things. But irrespective, in all of these situations, we are starting from the basis of knowing something already, right? The people that lecture are typically people that know the field of in which they lecture. In research, so and they can structure the educational experience around it. In research degrees, because our job is to create new knowledge, one of the big problems is that we can't really structure such a program very well because we don't know what we're structuring. Yeah, so not only are your lecturers do not know what the knowledge is that you're supposed to develop, they also usually do not necessarily know the topic that you're studying. The only thing they typically know are procedures and methods and approaches. They know how to go about doing it, but they don't know what you're doing and what you will find. And this is the key fundamental difference and the key challenge in doing research, either as part of a degree or even as part of a thesis, or of course as a professional career choice. Another way to consider why it's kind of difficult to undertake research is by looking at the counterexamples. So how do you know when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in research? So I collected a couple of typical misleading views of research is about, and they're meant to be a little bit funny. So one example is the person that has a great idea. I've just had this great idea. I don't know if anyone else had the idea. I haven't really checked, in fact, and this is a new thing here for me. But anyway, but my idea is brilliant. I'd like to share it with you all. That's not research because this could be the beginning of a research, but research is more than just an idea. It's an idea coupled with testing, coupled with comparison, coupled with careful evaluation in relation to the state of the art. Yeah, so where I see this very often is people that have new ideas, let's say about new technologies they want to build. I'm gonna build this new great AI tool for whatever, yeah. And I haven't really bothered in checking whether anyone else had this idea or whether there's a solution for this problem already. And I'm not even sure if the idea actually solves a problem. I'm just gonna build it and I want to share it. And I've done my research. So obviously that's not really what we're looking for. We don't know whether this is actually new knowledge, that great idea. Second example is that it's not your idea, it's someone else's idea. When people say something like, I've just read this great book that I really like a lot. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'm going to show you how what I've learned from this book applies to this situation over here. Yeah, so this could be knowledge, but it's knowledge we already have. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the book. Yeah. So, and here, this is a situation that is very often called gravity in the kitchen, where you take an explanation, where you take an idea or a theory that someone else developed in some context, of course, in some situation, and you show that it also works here. Right. So, if we know the principle of gravity from Newton. And then we go into the kitchen and say, hey, guess what? There's also gravity in the kitchen. Then, of course, we haven't created any new knowledge. We just showed that the same knowledge we already held also held in the kitchen, in some other aspects. A third example is, and that is very close to information systems, is people that build software. I've just built this great system, this tool, this app, this agent, whatever. I It's not based on theory. I haven't done any empirical testing. I am actually not very theoretical. I'm more a practical kind of guy. But the system is really neat, has great features, and people can use it. So can I have my degree now? So this is an example of a person creating something new, obviously, but not necessarily knowledge. This is the difference between someone building a software, like designing or engineering software as a profession or as a hobby or as a calling. So not every new app is a piece of research, right? So research is more than having an idea or building a new solution to a problem. There's got to be more to it, okay? And final example is someone that is basically the opposite. We could call them the theory hacker. I've just come up with this new theory or this model or this diagram or this framework or this architecture or this methodology or this procedure or something like this. I haven't checked for other framework theories or models, and it's not built on those, and I haven't actually done any research on it, any empirical research on that. In fact, most of the things that are in my framework are also in other frameworks, and I didn't like how they put it, so I invented my own. And I think it's actually better, but I haven't checked that either. So again, we see this quite a lot with when people claim they do research and come up with some sort of new framework. A typical example is, of course, consultancy companies have a lot of frameworks for assessing your digital maturity, for creating a roadmap for your digital transformation, for defining a strategy. All of these are frameworks that have all sorts of concepts, right? It could have things like leadership in there, or culture, or sandbox, or whatever else the terminologies that people use. Is that new knowledge? Maybe. It has this been tested, validated, compared? No, usually it hasn't. That's not the point of consultancy. They want to have a framework that works for them, and they apply these frameworks with all of their clients. They're not claiming to do research in the scientific sense. They do research for the consultancy, so their frameworks are research based, but it's a different kind of research. So all of these examples are meant to give you a brief idea, a vague idea of what we're not doing. In the next lecture, in this next set of videos, I will tell you what we're supposed to be doing, so we get an understanding of what it actually is that fills the criteria that we can call something research and new knowledge creation in the scientific research way. Here, I just want to end with three more personal aspects that matter to research and to completing a research degree and not falling into a trap of becoming physically mentally ill or stressed, or not finishing what you set out to do. So the first of these elements is actually a particular academic ambition, right? So very simply put, you need to ask yourself whether you have any ambition to enter or progress a scientific career in academia, because it's very different from the ambition to pursue a corporate career, a consultancy career, an industry career, or let's say an entrepreneurial career, right? The ambitions that would drive and propel you to undertake these endeavors would be very different. All of these things are very hard. None of these are easy. All of them take a long time, a lot of effort, but they're driven by different things. Yeah, so in my personal example, I've always had an ambition and desire to understand why things are the way they are. I didn't necessarily want to build new things. I didn't want to necessarily want to make the world a better place even. I just want to know and understand how they are the way they are. And so for me, that is an academic ambition, right? So, and just to give you a counter example, many of my friends have become entrepreneurs, and some of them very, very successful. And I've never had that ambition. I've never, not to this day, even wanted to pursue an entrepreneurial career where I built my own enterprise and, follow that dishwasher to millionaire analogy. It just never was my ambition. So one thing you could ask yourself is whether or not that sort of that ambition that you may feel in yourself, whether that resonates with things we associate with science, or whether it associates with, a business career or an industry career, or in fact an entrepreneurial career. A second key motivational aspect is dedication, meaning enthusiasm that you need to work on a intrinsically, like inherently complex challenge about something that we don't know enough or anything about for a very substantial amount of time. Research takes a very long time, and so you need to be able to dedicate yourself to studying something for a couple of years, usually, if not longer. Yes, so most good research takes anything from, let's say, 1 year, that's a very short study, to several years, if not decades. Yeah, so that you need some dedication for that, and you need some dedication to work on complex challenge without giving up. And the third aspect is commitment. So the willingness and possibility to free time and resources to work on the research for such a long time. Now, this may not be an aspect that you can fully control yourself. This could be dependent on your life situation, on your resourcing, and on your family or social situation, on your mobility, where you can be and where you can go, and so forth. So I know a lot of students or junior researchers who have ambition, and they have dedication, but they're not in a live environment that it makes it easy for them to free time and resources to pursue the research that takes a long time and a lot of effort. That could be because they maybe they're caretakers. That might makes it more difficult. That could be that because they don't have funding to do research for a long time. Whatever there may be. So what matters to research is first and this understanding that your job from now on is to create knowledge, not learn knowledge, which is difficult. To understand that there are different ways of doing research and not all of them are what we are trying to do here in scientific research. And thirdly, that you have ambition, dedication, and commitment. This concludes this video lecture. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching.